welcome to another video. Today I am going to be taking you on a tour of my Dotfiles, something I've been working on for a while, just slowly adding to. I try to keep everything up to date, try to, anytime there's like some improvement or some efficiency I can gain, try to keep that going for myself. I'm going to start over in GitHub. This is where I store my .files. I'll make sure there's a link to this repo in the description, but this is where I store everything. Let's hop over into Kitty and I'll start stepping through this. And I'm going to walk through this kind of from the outside in. I use neovim, tmux, Z-shell, and the terminal that I'm using here is called Kitty. So I'm going to start from the outside, show you really quickly my Kitty configuration. I'll go into tmux, then Z-shell, and then neovim will be last. Neovim definitely has the most configuration there, and in the future I'm going to be working on porting over my neovim configuration into Lua. So keep a heads up for that video. Let's start here in Kitty. I only recently started using Kitty. In the past I had used Alacrity, but switched over to Kitty mainly for the ligature support. I use Dank Mono as my font. It supports ligatures, and Alacrity didn't support that, so I switched over to Kitty. And I've been really enjoying it so far. So not really too much going on here. I have the font size blown up for this video, but everything else is pretty standard here. I'm using the Dracula theme. I try to keep that standard throughout pretty much everywhere. I really like that theme, think it's really well made, and really appreciate how many programs it supports. All right, let's go into tmux. In tmux, the first piece up here, this is me setting my prefix to control space. I think when you first start up tmux and you first start using it, the prefix is control B. I could be wrong about that since it's been a while, but this sets it to control space. And I use the space bar as a leader for Vim too. And then in tmux, it's control space, so it gives me a little separation. Setting the X term, setting the colors here. This lets me navigate around panes using Vim-like key bindings, easily resize windows, reload config using R, so that would be control space R. Let's go down a little farther. Something a little bit newer to me is TPM, and that is a plugin manager for tmux. And the main plugin I'm using is this Dracula plugin. So if you can see below on my screen, I've got this nice tmux status bar showing battery charge level, my Wi-Fi, and then some little location and weather information. I think it's hidden by my webcam view right now. All right, so that's tmux. Let's go into Z-shell. I've been using Oh My Z-shell for quite a while now. Really love it. I have my own theme set up. It's a pretty simple theme though. It's really just a little lambda. I think I have like some Git information there also. Shows red when I have a when the previous command failed. Pretty simple. So I have that set up. Let's talk about some plugins. These are my plugins. I'm going to talk about CDC first, and I just tried to use it there, but it didn't quite work. CDC is a command that lets me switch into repo directories quickly, and the way it works is you give it a list of repos, and then all you have to do is say cdc that repo instead of uh, actually the full path. And it's actually not repos, it's directories that contain repos. And the way I have my file system set up is I like to emulate wherever the code or wherever the code hosting is set up at. So for example, GitHub, I have all of my repos underneath a folder called JOrder underneath a GitHub repo. In any GitHub repo that I clone, I will create a folder underneath GitHub with that repo or with that organization or username, and then all of the repos underneath there. And with CDC, I can quickly change into any directory underneath that and get going right away. So I really like CDC. The other plugin I use is auto suggestions. And auto suggestions, let's see if, I don't think I have any setup for that. Oh, here it is, CSH auto suggestions. Just a little config here. But you may have seen this. This auto suggestions is kind of gives me some functionality like Fish Shell has, if you've ever used that. And all it does is lets me autocomplete past commands that I've used. It works really well along with CDC because I can see past commands and reuse them really quickly. So I really like CSH auto suggestions. All right. What else? These other ones are just regular plugins. I don't have too much to say about these. They mostly just give me some autocomplete for Docker, Node, NVM, that kind of thing. And just going through a few other of these files here, you can see I've got some configuration for Prettier. So here, if I'm working in a project that doesn't have a Prettier config set up, I'll take this one on. Some git ignore. Let's talk about the git config. I have a few aliases for git config that I use quite a lot. A lot of times people ask me what these are when I use them, and it's really my own shortcuts that I like, and I like setting them up with a git config alias instead of a shell alias, because with the git config alias, you still get all the autocomplete that you would with a regular git command. So I'll just show you really quickly how this works. Let's go into Dotfiles, and GS is get status. Let's say if I just change a file here, I'll just add a few extra lines to the end of this one. And a quick one I can do is git cam. This is short for git commit with a message. So I can say like that. And I can do a PO is for push origin. So that's just a quick example of how I use those. I've got a few others here. One of the nice ones I like is LGG. Gives me a quick, it's a log with a little bit of nicer coloring. This one's not very interesting because all the commits are by me, but if I'm in projects for work with many different contributors, that one is always nice to look at. Okay, let's keep going. I have configuration here for Doom Emacs and regular Emacs. Excuse me, I don't use these very much anymore. Mostly I use Emacs just for org mode these days. So not too much going on there. We saw Oh My Z Shell already. Let's see. Aliases. I like to separate those out to keep those nice and organized. I have a function here that helps me delete unused Git branches. Before I go into my neovim setup, I'll go through really quickly how I use these dot files when I'm setting up a new laptop. So I'm here in my home directory. If I do LA, you can see here that a lot of these configuration files, like here's my ZSHRC, and it's a symlink to my .files repo. And that's the way I do it. So any config file, I just set it up as a symlink to the file in my .files. Then when I'm making changes, I get both the benefit of immediately changing my environment and changing in the repo, so I can push that off to GitHub and share it with any other laptop that I want. So that's how I manage that. Makes it super easy, super fast to get going on a new laptop, and I can save all my changes easily. All right, I think that covers everything else. Let's go into my neovim setup. All right, so I'm in neovim right now. You can see me navigating around. Recently, I'd say in the past 6 months, I got really into the neovim world. A lot of the new Lua-based plugins are out, and they're really fantastic. Telescope is one that I use. This is Telescope. I can use it to search for files, like so. I can search for. I can do a live grep over a project. That kind of thing. But let's go in and let's start actually with this file that I have open right now, which is init.vim. This is the file that usually you start with in neovim. And the way that I have it set up is this file just sources all of my other files within my neovim configuration. So I list every file out here, and then when neovim starts up, it reads this file and reads in all of my configuration. All right. The way I have this set up is the first file here is my plugins. I use Vim plug for managing those. So this one just loads in all my plugins. Let's look at that file real quick. This lists out all the plugins. So then when I am adding a new plugin, I can use plug install and do that. Let's go back. The base.vim is just what it says, base Vim configuration that I like. Setting up my color scheme, which is Dracula here. Setting up some maps, like I said earlier, everything is set up with spacebar as my leader key. And then I have all my plugins. Whenever I add configuration for a plugin that I add, I create a file for that and store it there. And then if I have any language specific configuration, I have a languages folder. So at a high level, that's how it's set up. Let's go into maps.vim. This is one of my favorite key bindings that I have. This is one that lets me go from insert mode into normal mode. So usually in Vim, if I'm in insert mode like I am now, I have to hit escape to go into normal mode. What this binding lets me do is do that with just by hitting JK. So that's a really great shortcut for me. And I can tack on an S on the end to save the file that I'm working into. So if I'm in here making some changes, I can hit JKS and I can go back into normal mode and save the file all in one go. go into Files. The only one here I have is a key binding I have set up for leader, which is spacebar FS. All it does is save the file. Pretty simple. Let's go into Windows. This is usually just for splitting windows. So for example, if I want to do a horizontal split, space WS, now I have two splits. I can delete one with space WD. And this actually in the base.vim, this is where I have set up my leader to be the spacebar. All right, let's talk about some plugins. And for right now, I want to go into LSP config. This is something I've been learning a lot about. So in the new versions of neovim, there's an LSP server, a language server client built in. And I've been playing around with the different plugins that let you configure that and use that in projects. And hopefully I'll be coming out with another video soon with more details on this. You can see here, I've got it right now set up for TypeScript. That's what TS server is. So I have some setup there. Down here, I have some custom signs for errors and warnings. And up here, I've been experimenting with a plugin called null.ls, which lets me hook into the language server and use tools like Prettier and ESLint for formatting and code actions. So I've been experimenting with that, and you can see this file is all Lua. Even though it's a .vim file, it's really for Vim script. When you use this Lua till the end of file marker, and then at the bottom I have this EOF, you can write Lua in between there, and that's what I'm doing in this file. But like I said, a lot of my configuration is just becoming Lua, so I may as well take the dive and learn Lua and port my whole configuration over into Lua. This is a plugin called LSP Saga. It gives some ways to do code actions and hover doc, go to definition, that kind of thing. Let's do one more. This is NVim tree, which is this tree that I'm looking at right over here. Here's some other Lua config for setting that up. All right, I think that just about covers it. This was a pretty quick tour. Just wanted to get the high-level overview. And like I said, in the future, I'm going to be coming out with a video on converting all of this neovim configuration into Lua. So keep on the lookout for that. And thanks for watching.